Evening everybody, Rich here, back for another video for the Diecast F1 review. Here today is the McLaren MP4-25 for the 2010 Formula 1 season, and in the car is Lewis Hamilton. Now the 2010 season was sort of one of those seasons where, I think I mentioned this before, that nobody really deserved the championship that year. Sort of, whoever had the lead was quite easy to throw it away, and I think Lewis Hamilton that year was another example of that, with mistakes late on in the season where he was in very much a good chance of winning the title, but hey ho, that's history, and that's how it is. But the 2010 season didn't start too badly for McLaren. Third place in round 1, and then a win in round 2 and round 4 for Jenson Button. And then 3 more victories for Lewis Hamilton throughout the season. I think the last victory was at Belgium, so sort of in the August of that year, and McLaren sort of petered out really towards the end of the season. They sort of lost their way behind Ferrari and Red Bull as they sort of went their way with the championship. But 2010 was sort of a new age for Formula 1. We had lost 3 manufacturers. We had lost Honda in 2009, as well as BMW and Toyota at the end of 2009. But and also Renault had scaled back as well. They're still called the Renault team, but they're pretty sort of scaling back a lot. But we did gain Mercedes after all that as well, who took over the Brawn team. So it wasn't all end of the manufacturers, and we also gained 3 new teams at the back of the grid as well. But they were here under false pretenses. But like I said, the 2010 season, all new changes. Bigger cars due to the ban on refuelling, so the fuel tanks in the cars are much bigger, so the cars in 2010 were much longer. If you compare it to a 2009 car, which I have got lying around somewhere, the 2010 cars are much longer due to the fact of the lack of refuelling, the much bigger fuel tanks. So much bigger cars. Also the introduction of the F duct as well, the duct which is on the top of the chassis here, which is very difficult to see due to no natural light, but it's an air scoop in the chassis of the car which passes air through the chassis and out the top of the engine cover, I think bypassing the rear wing as well. Sort of I'm not sure if it's early DRS, but it's sort of that sort of thing anyway. But that was that, and I think a lot of teams followed that towards the end of the season. I think Sauber were quite prominent with their design, being an all-white car. You can see any changes to that chassis. But yeah, 2010 was an unusual season, entertaining as well. But for the McLaren itself, they launched their car. Well, I can't remember if they were one of the first to launch their car, because it was quite an unusual car to look at. If you look at it today, it's not really that unusual, but compared to its predecessors, it was a very unusual car with the shark fin, the sculpting around the shark fin, around this area here, the way the bodywork sort of sculpts around and things like that. Then the car is not symmetrical either. The one side has got a sort of a scoop there on the chassis, the other side does not. So I'll point that out in a minute. But 2010, at least the McLaren of that year, was a very unusual looking car. By those standards anyway, 2010 standards. But of course we had, in 2009 we had the much bigger wings of the front and a much more smaller wing at the back, rear wing being much narrower and taller, but the front wing being much wider and lower. But does make for some unusual looking cars, but I'd say the 2010 McLaren was an absolute beast in my opinion. It's an absolute beauty of a car, and a model much worth having. So yeah, 5 wins throughout 2010. But late season antics with Lewis Hamilton, 2 mistakes in 2 races, pretty much cost him the championship. I think it was a first lap collision with Massa in Monza, which was sort of I was not saying it was a desperate lunge, but it was sort of a really silly mistake, just going up the inside into a chicane, and it just tapped wheels basically, and Lewis come off second best, broken suspension. And then sort of a 50-50 lunge in Singapore as well against Mark Webber. Sealed his fate there as well, so Mark Webber come off better in that one, and Lewis broken rear suspension again. So 2 races, and that pretty much sealed his championship. But he was a championship contender down to the last race, but he wasn't really in contention for that race. So that was that. But onto the model itself. Now this is a Minichamps model as well. I have got the box over there somewhere, and I bought this in I think it was 2012. I bought this from Model Zone, when Great Britain had a model industry, or at least had a shop that sold models anyway. And I bought this, I think it was £39.99, so that's £40, which wasn't bad. I mean, I had an online voucher as well from Model Zone, so I took advantage of that, and I was very impressed with this one as well. So yeah, it's £40 at the time. I'm not sure what the price would be now though. I've been out sort of out of line, or not out of line, but out of touch with the diecast models over the past sort of year, knowing what the price of this thing would go for today. But I'll imagine around the 30-40 pounds would sort of be a good price for it. Buying, that is. If you're selling, I'm not really sure what you get for it. Yeah, but I think you pick this one up quite easily. But you do have to be careful about the show cars, because the show car sort of returned in 2010, 2011. So you get the 2010 car, but with Pirelli tyres and Pirelli logos and some other bits as well, but that's not a big issue. Now, I haven't got gloves on, so I will be moaned at for this, but have a look around the car anyway. As you can see, from a side-on profile, it is a massive car. I mean, this thing is huge. If I find, I'm just trying to think, where do I find a non-2010 car? I look in the cabinet. Look at this 2001 Ferrari, and you sort of get an idea on how big the car is. I mean, that's, hang on, I put that one there and put that one there, and I zoom up. You can get an idea on how big the 2010 McLaren is against the 2001 Ferrari. I know they're not the same era, but it gives you an idea on how the size of this car is. I mean, the 2001 Ferrari is a beauty on its own, but the 2010 McLaren is huge, and that's a good 2 inches in length. What will that translate to in real size? Probably about 8 feet. So move that out of the way. So yeah, it's a huge car. In 2010 was sort of the beginning of what we have today. I mean, the cars today are even bigger now because they're wider, they've got bigger tyres, and yeah, it's a real biggie. So have a quick look around the car anyway. So like I said, I will get moaned at for touching this thing, but hey, there we go. So as you can see, nicely sculpted. Got the F duct on the top there. You can't really see that very well. Got the F duct there, and also a plate alongside it, which is sort of a symmetrical thing. Got nice decaling along the top there, the antennas. Carbon detailing on the suspension, and also scrubbed slick tyres, so you don't have the clean slicks. Nicely detailed there along the side. No side pods, or no barge balls, sorry, because of the rules of that time. But you do have the side barge balls there around the cockpit as well. So look in the cockpit. Damn it. And come on, focus. There isn't much, say, detailing on the wheel. There is a few painted buttons, but can't really get a good idea. It's going to be natural light at the moment. It's not at its best. But you got all the detailing along the side, and you got the scoop, the sort of the swooping side pod, and the exhaust exiting out the back. And you got the shark fin along the top there. Well, that connects to the rear wing, part of the F duct, and all around the rear suspension. You got a bit of carbon detailing on the floor down there. Very nicely done. And you got the rear tyres there, a bit dusty because of this table I'm using, but the rear wing up to there. If I turn the car around a bit, you can see the car is not symmetrical. You've got the scoop down the side here, and you've got a big bulbous bulge on the other side. So it just changed hands. You've got a big bulge on the side there. This is sort of the fanciness of the McLaren at the time. You've got the exhaust pipes, which are, I think, of different lengths as well. So it's a non-symmetrical car, but it's a real beauty in looking at it from this angle. From any angle, it's a big car. I mean, there's the F1 2010 view. And like I say, it is a big car. It's a real beauty though. Really well put together. I mean, it's a solid car as well. I mean, the rear wing, that is, well, the way it's held on with the F duct as well, I mean, that is not going to fall off. I mean, that is properly on there solid. So I just adjust the camera again. So you've got the detailing around the rear there as well. You've got the diffuser down there, which is always a topic of discussion down there. And I think the rear wing's actually attached to the diffuser, I'm not sure. But you've got all the detailing down there. And you just spin the car around again. The front suspension does look a bit off at the moment. I think it's just the camber of it. I mean, it's not loose suspension at all at the front. It does look like it's cambered in, and I think it is, because it's not going to move. It's not loose. It's actually quite solid on there. So that's quite nicely done. So just turn the car around again and have a look around this side. And we've got a bit more floor to look at here. So you've got more of the floor, and you can look at the rear suspension there as well. Big hole in the side for the exhaust pipe. And nicely detailed as well. Once again though, the grills on the side here are not all the way through. I mean, they're just sort of moulded in plastic. They're not see-through, so that's a detail. It's sort of lost in Minichamps, but that's not a big deal. And you got the little barge balls down there, which I thought weren't there. And detailing around the front. You've got the big scoop on the front. You can't really see it on the front, but under the nose the chassis does scoop. So if I just turn the front around, we get a look at the front wing as well. Just scoop back around there. And you've got the front wing now. You've got all the elements of the front wing, which is a piece of engineering brilliance at its you know, there's most. So got that there. Got the nose, all the decals there. Lewis looking forward, and the T-cam. Very nicely made model, and I would recommend this one. And an absolute beauty. So that's the front wing there, and the scoop under the nose. If I just lift up the front there, you can see, well, not really, I can't see very well, but look under the nose, you can see a scoop under there, right between the front wing pillars. You got the scoop there. So more aerodynamics going on there, and yeah, really nice car. You get all the detailing going on with it. Now if I zoom out, you can get a look underneath. If I can tip it up the right way, crunk, and there's massively detailed diffuser there. All the gubbins going on there, all along the plank, and all the areas attached under there. Up towards the front as well, you can get an idea of that scoop on the front. Pardon me, that's not me farting, that's the tripod. And you've got the scoop just there. You've got the zero keels, you know, there's no keel underneath now. Because this is modern Formula 1, we don't believe in keels. So just zoom out again and plonk the car back down. It's a really heavy car as well, I mean it's a real chunk. And yeah, for a McLaren, if you're not a McLaren fan, then by all means, you know, you don't have to buy it, but for a Formula 1 fan, it is a real piece of engineering. It's a real beast of a car. I mean, I don't think even the 2010 Red Bull, which is also a big car, is as heavy as this one. This is really a chunky model, and I would recommend getting it. So, like I say, I think I paid about £40 for it, and that was back in 2012. So I think by today's standards, you're probably going to pick it up for about, I don't know, £30–40. I think that'd be a good price, but you know, with the eBay sales and things like that, I think you're just going to end up paying too much for some of these models. I think a lot of people take the piss with the bidding nowadays. You know, the buy it now prices are just through the roof. So if you can find one being sold at a bidding price, at a low starting price, then you know, go for it. I mean, it is an absolute beast of a car, and I would recommend it. I mean, it does stand out quite nicely in the collection. I mean, when it's sat in the box as well, because like I said, it is a big car. If I just turn to the right here, I mean, that's the standard Minichamps box right there. And you got the MP4-11 in there, and that's a big car on its own anyway. But once you put it next to the MP4-25 and in a Minichamps box as well, it does fill the box quite nicely. So yeah, it is really does stand out quite nicely, and it is a standard box it comes in as well. It's not a special McLaren box or anything like that. It's just a standard version. So yeah, I would recommend picking this one up. Like I said, the prices, you know your limits with your prices, so I'd you know, recommend a bit of common sense with that one. But yeah, I'd recommend it, and yeah, it's an absolute beauty, and I can't really fault it. The pieces on it, because it's a 2010 car, there's not a lot of loose pieces on it, because all the aerodynamics are sort of more restricted, so the pieces on it are not going to fall off. The weakest point I'd say is the front wing, but that is still quite solid, so you know, it's a very well built model. It's not going to break apart at any given moment. So yeah, I would recommend it, and that's pretty much what I've got to say on it. So yeah, so this is Rich signing off, logging off and disappearing, I think, and I return with another review. I've got a few more to do. I mean, there's a few more at the back there. I've got the March, a Willems, and the Red Bull up there, McLaren. So there's a few more to do, but we'll sort them out another day. So like I said, this is me disappearing, and I shall return with another video. So bye for now.